Hello, thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings podcast. I'm your host, Paul. Today's day is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, and this is episode 41. I want to thank everyone that's showing us all the support. We've been getting a lot of feedback. We've had a lot of emails. We've had a lot of great comments, too. A lot of people enjoying some just new takes that they've had on just different content we've had on the shows. Also, you can find us on Facebook at 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings Podcast and Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio. I'm super excited about tonight's guest. We are back at it with Katie P. from Austin, Texas. How you doing, Katie?
I'm doing good, Paul. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, appreciate you. I tell you, last week's episode, like I just told you before we got on air, it was an eye opener in so many different ways when you started reading some of those letters. That was a game changer with it. Yeah, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love the fact that, one of the things that I think most people don't understand is giving the amends and listening to the amends are both very uncomfortable. Yeah. They're not like, oh boy, I can't wait for so-and-so to sit down and tell me what harm they've caused me. And both people are uncomfortable. And so to me, I think sometimes a letter, especially if somebody doesn't want to see you, then, you say, can I send you a letter? There's letters are effective, very effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I'm super excited about tonight too. I'll tell you though, I've been listening to people do the 10th step talks over the years, and your 10th step talk has got to be hands down probably my favorite, honestly.
Oh, yeah, very kind. Yeah. Well, I stole 90% of it from Mark. Okay, I learned more about the 10th step from Mark Houston after he was gone and passed away. I just stumbled upon one of his 10th step talks, and there was, I tell you, at the right place at the right time with the right person, the right spiritual teacher, yeah. And you just crack open a whole nother chapter of life. And that's what happened to me. And I listened to his CD and I like to teach people how to study. Some people by nature know how to study. I'm not one of them. So I like to teach studying, and what I wanted to do was listen to his CD in 15-minute increments and then write notes, sometimes re-listen to the 15 minutes again for 2 or 3 days in a row, and then move on to another 15 minutes and then do that for a couple of days. And because if you listen to a CD from beginning to end, there's so much information in there, you miss it. And if we have to get this stuff, we're either going for knowledge or we're going for experience. And to me, that's why, listening to them for 15 minutes and writing them down, and then maybe even getting a buddy to do the same thing. And then we come together once a week and talk about, what did you hear? Not so much what was your experience with it, because once again, I want to understand the directions. Once I understand the directions, I can help a lot of people do a lot of things. I don't have to have had the experience. There's a handful of things in AA that you have to have the experience with. Some is, children, raising kids, and, sexual molestation is horrific. And somebody possibly killing somebody in a drunk driving accident. There's a handful of things that you need to find another person that has had that experience. But the other 90% of stuff in AA, you don't have to have the experience to be able to help somebody. Wow, nice. And I see that a lot. People call me and go, Katie, I have a sponsee. I was wondering if you've ever had this experience. And I said, you don't have to have the experience sometimes. There's some things you do, but 90% you don't. The book tells us clearly how to handle most of the amends process and everything in the book. It covers it all.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's pretty much like, get in touch with the power, right? It's like, I don't have the power. There is a power, let's tap into it. And that's really what this 10th is I tell you, I heard, a buddy of mine did a retreat, a few weeks ago in New Jersey, and all the way through her 10th step talk was cool because she kept talking about this space, now we've opened up to this space. I was talking to a guy earlier about the same thing on how, like, when you're talking about taking the higher road, you can't do that if there's not space involved, right? I mean, if you're just completely submerged, in what your thoughts and feelings, like, that's taking you under, right? But when you've had this spiritual awakening, you went through the process, you start to sense the flow of his spirit. Now you're, awake and aware going through the day. That's a game changer, right?
It absolutely is. And I think, once again, most people just have a misunderstanding of a lot of things. And I don't think there's people out there, doing it wrong and all of that. I think they just misunderstand. And spiritual growth is spiritual growth. I'm not here to measure your spiritual growth. I'm here to hopefully enhance it and help it because I got a little bit more time down the road than you do. And that's just kind of a more growing understanding and effective way of approaching that.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And, to me, the steps 10 and 11 are hand in glove, right? Yeah. And we're going to only do 10 tonight, but 10 and 11 are hand in glove. They go together so beautifully. And I always like to say the idea of watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear is much different than waiting for it. So I think if you're not careful, you take the step off the wall, as most of us did in recovery. That's about 90% of AA is taking the steps off the wall. There's no disrespect to that statement. Yeah. It's easier to say, you ask somebody, what does the third step mean to you? It says, I'm going to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. That is the step off the wall, but there's so much more depth in it. But if you're not involved in a group that studies the book, you don't understand it. And it's just, it's once again, not good, bad, right, wrong. It's just, you're missing a whole bunch of stuff. And I was one of those people that missed a whole bunch of stuff. And so connecting the dots really changed for me. So the 10th step says, continue to take personal inventory. And when we're wrong, promptly admit it. Well, that's the step off the wall. And that step looks like damage control. So that, to me, if what I was doing with the 10th step, because God knows I wasn't studying the book, I'd say I'd come into a meeting, I'd say something to somebody, I'd stepped on their toes, and now they're pissed off at me. And I've walked in completely spiritually asleep. I stepped on their toes. They startled me awake. I clearly have upset them. And now I have to make an amends. That's what I thought the 10th step was. And don't get me wrong, that kind of is a piece of the 10th step, but that's not all of the 10th step. So I think sometimes, once again, when we're these 4 paragraphs in the big book are the most profound paragraphs ever written, because they start talking about a level of spiritual awakening that I wasn't even aware of. Hold on, Izzy, if you're gonna give me trouble, girl, you're coming back here. Come on. Yeah, I know. She's like, okay, we're gonna start whining to my mother. So that, that's kind of the thing that you want to keep in mind is, where am I in sobriety? Where am I in my spiritual growth? Where am I? And that's a fair question to ask yourself so that you can have a starting point. Where are you? Are you 18 months sober? That's somebody who's just kind of waking up to what's going on. Are you 6 years sober? Okay, we got something different to look at, and then of course I thought the 10th step was the evening review, because it's once again misunderstood in the rooms. I certainly misunderstood it, and I always like to say I thought it was the evening review, and I wasn't doing it anyway. So let's be very clear. I wasn't out there judging people, because I didn't get it. But the step off the wall looks like damage control. And when you take the 4 paragraphs and really, really begin to dig into them, you get somewhere. Spiritual growth is a whole like maturity. We mature in decades, right? Your 20s, you're bulletproof. Your 30s, you're starting to find out who you are. Do we want to have kids? Do I want to get a house? Do I want to be married? Your 40s, you start to perfect whatever you did in your 30s. Your 50s, you're starting to chill, man. You're getting to a place to where it's like you're clearly at the halfway point, right? Charlie used to always love to say, you just hope you're not putting on the 18th hole. And, so you've got a life going for you. And then in your 60s, you really start looking back, and your 70s, it's just a much more chill experience. Well, spiritual growth to me, this is my observation, comes in threes and fives. So it's between 18 months and 3 years you have a spiritual experience. At 3 years to 5 years, 5 to 7, 7 to 12, 12 to 15. And they're not, you don't hit walls like a train wreck. Now, some of them you might, but you hit a flat spot. You hit a not connected, a dark spot, whatever you want to call it. You're going to do this because spiritual growth comes with pain. I'm not gonna live in enlightenment. I wish I could, because that's the dope, man. That's a great spot to be in enlightenment. Yeah. But that's not realistic in life at all. And so, we got to know that when these flat spot comes, we have to do something. We have to get a new spiritual book, a new spiritual teacher, mix stuff up. It's a whole lot like working out at the gym. I've been an athlete all my life. And, if I was doing the same thing today that I did 30 years ago, that would be absurd. You have to add something new, mix something up. And the same thing I think happens with spiritual growth. Since it's me talking about the 10 step, I'm going to give a lot of my experience. Some may agree with it, some may not. But, it's once again, it's all experiential. Yeah. So, and I think where the delusion comes in to most alcoholics is we think once we hit 10, double digits is a big deal in life, right? When you're a kid, 10 years old is way bigger deal than 13. You may be a teenager, but you're double digits at 10. And in AA, for some reason, 10 seemed like a monumental wow, and it is. Yeah. But let me tell you what my experience is. Once you hit 10, you think you've arrived, and then you become a know-it-all. And you can't tell somebody much when they've got the beginning of double digits. And I refer to them as the teenage years. Charlie hated that I say that. But I raised kids, man. I was a teenager, and I raised kids. I know exactly what happens in the teenage years. And you can't tell a teenager anything. They know everything. And that's what happens in AA. And most of the damage that we do is between 10 and 20 years because we've rested on our laurels. We've got the gifts of sobriety have pulled us back out. We want to have another kid. We got a successful business. I start looking at my life, and people always say, well, they quit going to meetings, and at meetings was the last physical thing we saw anybody do. They quit working an AA program long before they went back out. And that's double digits, or a lot of people go back out on double digits. I almost did at 15. And, I can look at this treasure map, and in that treasure map, there's some very, very dangerous spots in my treasure map. And the hand of God, thank goodness I was raised in AA with some things that said, don't ever lie to a drunk. And, that saved my life when this guy called me when I was getting ready to drink. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm getting ready to get a beer, and I'm 50 yards from, I'm walking. And that's the kind of stuff that the foundation of Alcoholics Anonymous is so important in 10, 11, and 12, because at that foundation of honesty with another drunk, no matter what, I'm holding nothing back. The man on page 73 has a reputation he knows he doesn't deserve because he's kept some secrets. Secrets will kill you. Yeah. And, they're just necessary to get out. And that's why I think, if we're not careful in AA, never mind, I'll get off on a tangent on that. I think it's just really important in AA to teach this younger generation that integrity is what we live by, period.
Nice. Yeah.
It's integrity, and I'm not about, any of this other nonsense. It's integrity, and we follow the traditions, and we keep AA safe and sound. But, so that spiritual growth, so you got to kind of know, who you are. I like to say you got to know what dog you're walking. Is it a poodle or is it a Great Dane? I mean, where am I today? Because I can't fool myself about values, right? Yeah. Experience and maturity are so important. And then there's something I like to read. It's the 10th step. I got more reading in it than I'm comfortable with. Sometimes we'll see if it works for a podcast. This was just out of one of my daily readers. It says problems are a part of life. They're inescapable, woven into the fabric of our world. We tend to go into problem-solving mode all too readily. Action as if we have the capacity to fix everything. Boy, does that sound like us or what? This is a habitual response, so automatic that it bypasses our conscious thinking. Not only does this habit frustrate us, it also distances us from God. So don't let fixing things be your top priority. We are ever so limited in our capacity to correct all that is wrong in the world around us. Don't weigh ourselves down with responsibilities that are not our own. Instead, make our relationship with God our primary concern. Talk with God about whatever's on your mind, seeking his perspective on the situation, rather than trying to fix everything that comes to your attention. Ask God to show us what is truly important. Remember that we are en route to freedom, and let our problems fade into the light of the universe. And I read that one day. Oh my gosh, it resonated with me. And in this current environment, if we're not careful, we clearly are in some troubling times, right?
Yeah.
No, however you want to look at it, troubling. Well, if you're going to stay glued to that TV or whatever it is you're listening to, whatever you put in your mind, you will only be able to talk about. And it is something that is so out there. And people are like, well, it's responsible. It's irresponsible. Oh, I'm not saying if it's responsible or irresponsible, but what you put in your mind, you live.
Yeah.
And there is times where you must realize that my primary purpose is to help another drunk, be good to my family, and help society in whatever way I can. And so I always like to say, man, be very, very careful of this, because the next thing you know, those traditions are crucial. They will separate you from someone if you start spouting off what you think, and it gets problematic. And the book talks a lot about purpose. What is our purpose? Is our purpose to try to solve the problems of the world? Or is our purpose, it says our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Yeah. We are here to play the role God has assigned, right? And fit means to adapt. That is so important. And then it says our primary purpose is to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. And then our other purpose is to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Yeah. Bill loved the word purpose. Yeah. And I think when you dive into some of this current affairs, if you're not careful, you will miss your primary purpose. You just will. You'll get lost in everything. And Billy Noonan did a beautiful talk on it one time. We were all speaking together, and he can get my attention. Yeah. And he started talking about it, and I thought, first of all, it was ballsy to talk about, and secondly, because I love somebody that'll have the balls to do something like that. I'm like, wow,
he's ballsy. Yeah, I like Bill.
That's right. You do you. I'll take it, and it was really good because we can't let any of that stuff separate us. Yeah. And if we're not careful, it god dang sure will separate us. Yeah. And I think it's important to say too. I'm going to get angry or afraid. I don't have the freedom to stay angry and afraid. Amen. Right? Even if it's justified resentment, that's called forgiveness. I'd prefer to not have to forgive. I don't do that one very well. I like to keep score, get even, find out that so-and-so fell and stumbled. I'm like, good for them. It's not a part of my spiritual program that I find is my one where I'm stroking it saying, good for you, Katie. Because the truth of the matter is, I love between column 3 and 4 of a resentment inventory, the sick man prayer. Yeah. It's God help me show them the same patience, tolerance, and pity I'd grant a sick friend. Mm-hmm. They, like myself, are sick too. You see, I once I see that I'm a hypocrite, I get a lot of freedom out of that. I could be either person in this play, and that's the importance of putting pen to paper and really getting down to causes and conditions. The book implies trouble. Lots of warnings throughout the book. It's not just coast and relax and enjoy yourself. There's three that I like to refer back to. It's on page 25. Blot out our intolerable situation the best we can, or accept spiritual help. Page 53. Crushed by a self-imposed crisis we couldn't postpone or evade. Either God's everything or he's nothing. And then page 133, the deliberate manufacture of misery. God didn't do it, but when trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize on it so he can show his omnipotence, right? Nice. This lack of power was our dilemma because they both suck. If I need $300 by tomorrow, you think I'm going to go into prayer and ask for it? Maybe. Yeah. Or I'm going to pawn something, right? I am going to take control. I mean, I'd love to say that I'm 40 years sober. Yes, would I do more prayer today than I would when I was 7 years sober? But there was a time in double digits that if I had a problem, I fixed it. By God, I fixed it. I didn't go to prayer with it or anything because I'm a fixer. And I think there's a lot of people in AA that are fixers, Yeah. And you just go into fix it mode, and then you do enough of that, it becomes just a habitual reaction. Yeah. And somebody will go, did you pray on it? I'm like, oh, are you going to be one of those folks? Did I pray on it? No, I didn't pray on it. I just went and fixed it. Yeah. Now today, and now I won't ask that question because I don't know why that question bugs me. Would you rather be right or happy? Well, of course I would much rather be right, but if happiness follows, I'll take it. Yeah. But I mean, those just sound, I don't know why to me they give me a rub of spiritual high ground or something. Did I pray about it? Right now, it almost makes me feel like you want me to work the promise and hope the step comes true. And it's got to go the other way. I got to work the step to get to the promise. I can't think myself into right action a lot of times when I'm scared or angry. I cannot do that. And so, I understand where they're going with it, but it doesn't, it's not an effective tool with me, as you can tell. I didn't do well with that one, but I mean, the spirit falls asleep and we're dreaming we're awake. Yeah. That's Mark Houston was huge about we're asleep, dreaming we're awake, man. And it's a gentle way of saying, we're drifting way too far out to sea, and we got to get back. It talks about the spiritual life is not a theory, right? We have to live it. And theory is speculation. And once again, some of those terms, would you rather be right or happy, sounds like you're throwing out some sort of theory to me, and it won't. I'm too hard-headed and strong-willed. It just won't work on me. I wish it did. I wish I could just go, thank you so much for that. I would much rather be happy and just right this ship right now.
That's funny.
That I do not have in my wheelhouse.
That's funny.
I'd like to think I try to do it with as little arrogance as possible, but I don't think that's the case either. and Mark used to say stuff like, the book says we've entered the world of the spirit. Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I heard that line, I thought, what does that even mean?
Amen. Yeah.
Mark, you say, how do you know what you don't know? Yeah. That's a great statement, because enter the realm of the spirit. I mean, the world of the spirit. What does that look like? Yeah. Today, I understand it. Sure. It's not too terribly difficult for me to explain to somebody too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And how do we stay? It's when I first got sober, gossip was just dope. I mean, I loved gossiping about everybody in AA. I loved talking smack. I mean, it was just what we did. We were young and full of ourselves. And so when I started, my girlfriend and I, we both had 3 years sober. I'll never forget this. She said it or I said it. One of us said, we got to quit gossiping. It's getting bad. And the other one agreed, we got to quit this. And we sat there and had nothing to say. Nothing. Wow. I mean, we couldn't talk about anything. We both laughed so hard. We were like, oh my God, this is terrible. Because, it's like, boy, it's a pretty day. Sure is. Silence, I mean, it was so monumental to me. And so when it says we've entered the world of the spirit, all of a sudden gossip no longer feels good. Lying no longer feels good. That's the beginning of entering the world of the spirit, right? I mean, then of course it just grows leaps and bounds. But the book then says our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And function means expected duty. So a cup's expected duty is to hold liquid. So this is really important to be talking to people about. Do you agree that our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness? And I think you and I talked about it. I've never been the fan of, I called my sponsor and they hung up on me, and that is so ineffective. It's just not effective to me. I think it's all for fun and games, or maybe there's some crotchety old bastards out there that do that, but it's not my cup of tea. And and I'm certainly not the touchy-feely, lovey one either, but if I'm going to get a point across to you, sometimes I'll have to say, hey, listen, it's my time to talk now. Now, I've got the storyline. If I can't shut somebody down kindly and say, okay, I understand, let me say, and they keep talking, I can get forward on that, but not abrasive. I used to do that early on. I'll never forget. This is where Bob Darrell stepped into my world, and he said, we're good friends, and he said, Katie, I was so pissed off. My sponsees weren't doing what I wanted them to do, and I'm madder than they are, and I tell them they got an assignment and they don't finish it. I call him and I'm just pissed, and he said just so calmly, he said, Katie, why don't you say the prayer of understanding and effectiveness? And once again, man, you tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. In AA, that I learned early on. And so I got off the phone. I really did a lame prayer. God, please help me grow in understanding and effectiveness. And I kid you not, Paul, the next day was the only defect of character in my lifetime that I had an immediate shift, that I became so much more compassionate in everyone I talked to. It's unbelievable, and it's still there today.
Nice.
And most people will tell you that, if Katie sponsors you, she's got a tremendous amount of compassion and never push you or anything. Now, I will tell you, if I give you a suggestion and I'm clear you're not going to take it, I stole this from Craig Cloves. I said, I'm not going to rob you of an experience you're going to have, be it good or bad. So I've given you my pros and cons, and you get to do whatever you want. But if you choose the more dangerous one, you're going to have a bad experience. And see, it's not my place to rob somebody of that. I don't like seeing them walk into the buzzsaw, but they've got to learn one way or another. And God did so gracefully remove that, because boy, I was tough when I was in what Charlie and I called our evangelical stage. I was tough. I don't know if Charlie was, but I darn sure was really hard on my sponsees, and it was woefully ineffective. And then the book gives us the clear-cut directions. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Well, selfishness is wanting everybody to do as I wish. That's just the simple thing that I'm looking at, and I'll manipulate. I'll do whatever I got to do to get my way. Now, I'm better than I've ever been, but I still see it rear its ugly head. Sometimes I lean into it and do it. I'm by no means cured of all of these things the book is talking about. And then dishonesty comes in three forms, right? Flat out lying by omission, and then believing the delusional lie. And that one's the real tricky one that we don't even know we're doing, right? I have a storyline I'm telling myself. That's totally delusional. But it doesn't matter, because in my head, it's fact. And then I run with it. And that believing the delusional lie is a really, really, we suffer tremendous consequence from those things. And then you got resentment and fear. Well, we all know what that looks like, So if I'm to continue to watch for these things, see, we're not waiting for them, we're watching for them. So we're watching our thinking. And every once in a while, somebody will go, oh my God, all day I'd be doing that. Well, we're just trying to get you to do it a little bit first. And then eventually you will watch all day. Just like when you're driving a car, you may not consciously be thinking that you're coming up on a light, but you damn sure know what color the light is. So I mean, you don't have to go, okay, I got my hands on 10 and 2 and I got to use my blinker and I'm moving over to the left lane. You just drive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same experience you have with the 10th step of watching for these things.
Yeah.
You're just watching, you're thinking. And my thinking is some days I'm pretty stoved up. I mean, I'm pretty frustrated and angry. And it's like, wow, God, look at me go here. I am not spiritually fit at this present moment.
Yeah.
So at least I'm conscious of it. Maybe I turn, maybe I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, current situation allows me to be very, live dangerously if I'm not careful. I've got to realize that, yes, I've lost my husband. Yes, I'm terribly sad. Is it lonely? You bet it is. But I could, Marty always says you got to be careful to not, go from drift into sorrow. I'm in sorrow and I'm drifting into self-pity. Very, very dangerous, very easy to do. And on any given day, you can't really see it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's the importance of like doing a lot of inventory with it. Right. And I love how you just had, I love how the difference between the watch and the wait is active. I'm not like just passively just like do. It's like no, it's actually
exactly.
I'm present through the day. Right? And I like also how you said in the beginning, you might get glimpses of it, but then as time goes on, it's just a natural. Like it's just
it's a working part of the mind.
That's it, yeah. Just like what it says in 11, right? It gradually becomes a working part of the mind. That's true. And I'll tell you...
It does.
It's also, like, I think, and when you go into the nightly review on the 11th, like you said, hand in hand, that I think that deepens the process, too, because, like, if I'm writing about it, next thing you know, like, I'm going over it the following morning and then kind of going in prayer with that, and then, it's just all ties in together, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, people are like, am I supposed to watch every thought I have? One would be a beginning, I mean, just try it, instead of poo-pooing the whole damn thing, because I'm really easy to poo-poo some stuff, when it looks like I'm like, I don't know if I'm all up for this action. But the truth of the matter is 10 and 11, if practiced, it has a remarkable experience if practiced. But it's the same as, I've always said I've been an athlete all my life. I mean, going to the gym is just a part of my life, period. And here's the deal. I don't want to go a lot of times. A lot of times I don't want to go, but I got to go. So I think people think that athletes just can't wait to work out. Now, if somebody's hearing this that's an athlete and they do, well, lucky you. But that's not been my experience. I mean, today I get to the gym and I figured out how to get over there in time. I had 9,000 things I had to do, and I get into the gym and I have forgotten my shoes. And I'm telling you, took me out. I mean, it was like, are you kidding me? I busted my tail from South Austin to North Austin to get to the gym. So I wore my flip-flops. I walked out to a couple of my buddies. I go, does this look stupid? And these guys go, no. I go, oh, you're such a liar. I got a cute outfit on and these shoes aren't even the right color and they're flip-flops, for God's sakes. And I did it anyway. I thought, forget it. I'm just going to pretend like I got tennis shoes on and we're rolling with it, that's all I can say. But, and then one of the things too, then, so we're watching for these things, right? And then it says when they crop up. So here's the second part of the directions. So when this crops up, I always like to tell people, let's simplify what you're watching for. Just watch for anger and fear. That's good enough. Just start with those two things. You don't have to watch for all four of them. You'll eventually get into that. So watch for when you're really angry and when you're fearful. And then it says, here's our four things we're supposed to do. We're supposed to ask God at once to remove them, right? This is the affirmative prayer comes into play. And I'm telling you, affirmative prayer, positive prayer, you have to say something that you are affirming in this circumstance. And people like to jump to, I don't believe it. It doesn't matter. You have to do it anyway. I don't like paying my taxes, but I got to do it anyway, right? There's a lot of things in life we don't want to do or don't believe, and we have to do it anyway.
Give us an example of what you mean, like on the affirmative.
Let's say you're give me an example of what would be an easy one. Let's say your neighbor has just stepped outside and given you just kind of a look.
Okay.
And you're thinking, well, what the heck is that look? Mm-hmm. And we have a fairly good relationship, but it's not that great, something along those lines. So instead of running down the road, because that look can cause me to go into my head, and then I'm full of, 1,000 thoughts. Did I do this? Did I say this? Was this happening? Yeah. Whatever the case may be. And instead I stop and tap the brakes and I say, God, I'm not willing to believe the delusional lie. That means I have just watched the mind try to take me down a very dark road. Amen. And then I affirm something beautiful, and I say my neighbor and I have a great relationship. We love to sit and have coffee and visit. Yeah. Maybe I've never done that in my life with them.
Nice.
But you're going to throw out something so positive and people will say things like, well, that'll never happen. This is not about if it happens or not. Yeah. You have to affirm the good and watch how God orchestrates this. Because this is all very, very important things.
Let me add something too. I love how you said that, because I'll I don't know what I'll do on my 11th when I'm doing my nightly review. Like when it asks me about dishonesty, I'll even go into like I didn't necessarily say something or act dishonest, but the internal dialogue I had was carrying me down the road for a minute, and I was dishonest to myself. You
bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
And see, that's the problem. It is a snap thought that can, spin me like a top out. Yeah. It could be a look across the room. It could be somebody in the driving, and they look over at you and kind of give you that look, and you're like, what? What, and we go, at least I do, and I think most people I run with go down a pretty dark road pretty easily.
Yeah.
And we got to realize, oh my gosh, this is so delusional. Good Lord knows what happened. I've had people say, are you upset with me, Katie? I'm like, why would I be upset with you? It's like, well, I saw you, and I thought, oh, I was probably drifting off into something else, right?
Yeah.
So what we're supposed to do when we're watching for these things, we ask God, it wants to remove it. There's the affirmative prayer. We discuss them with someone immediately. Now, I hate to always pull out the pushback that I hear, because not everybody gives you pushback. But the pushback I hear from some people is, so I'm supposed to call you every time I'm angry or afraid? No, you're the one driving the bus. So if something is rattling around like a marble in your head, then you need to call somebody. If it was just somebody frustrated you in traffic and it's, at the next intersection, you forgot about them, no, you don't have to do that. It's when it's rattling around in your head is that it's going to be dangerous, because it will catch momentum. And the next thing you know, man, you are cocked, locked, and loaded.
Yeah.
And that's when you call somebody. And I like to call Marty. I'm not a big fan of texting. I really wish I could get everybody to understand how much you're missing in a text. Text is for facts, not feelings. And if you're angry, that's a feeling. And if you're afraid, that's a feeling. So I'm not the biggest fan of texting. And so it says we discuss them with somebody immediately, make amends quickly. If we've harmed anyone, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we could help. Not our actions, just our thoughts. Yeah. So, it's a real interesting, God, I'm not willing to believe this delusional lie. Affirm it. I'll give Marty a call. I'll leave it on her machine. If it's really rattling around, I got 3 other sponsees that I call them my 10-step buddies. I think everybody should have 10-step buddies. Nice. And, you just go down. Yeah, you go down the list till somebody answers. Yeah. And it's really good to have those 10-step buddies. I like to do that at conferences. Tell people, call me with the 10-step. I'm pretty good at them, and I really enjoy doing them. And I don't have to know your whole background, your whole life story. You can just tell me I'm upset with my boss. How long have you worked there? How long has he worked there? What was the beef? Just get a handful of information, and you can sum it up pretty quickly with somebody. Yeah. And I just can't tell you how important 10-step buddies are. Nice. Now, as I just went on my rant about not texting, I am quite the hypocrite. Okay. So I am in the doctor's office when Charlie had his throat cancer scare long before we had the horrific stuff that happened. And the one thing about doctors and hospitals is I am a damn good advocate. I mean, to tell you, I'm not a nurturing person, but I am an advocate, and I'll make darn sure you're getting the care you need, period. And Joe let me just be the advocate, and I just walk in, through all his brain surgery, his Hep C, the whole 9 yards. I was just his advocate, and his back surgeries and everything. And so when you're with somebody, the way they handle doctors could be different than what you were used to in the previous relationship. And so Charlie is just, he is Mr. Swell guy. He goes in and he's scared. So the way he shows his nervousness is he's just, really sweet to the nurses. Hey, Mary, how are the kids at school? And this and all that stuff, right? And he's just rocking and rolling in there. And so I just let him go. And we have to do this throat surgery thing every 3 months. It's a throat checkup. We have to drive to San Antonio, and Charlie and I spent a lot of time together. So we stopped at the outlet mall on the way home, and we needed our favorite Mexican food breakfast restaurant, and we just we made a day of it, right? Because he was self-employed, and it's the way we handled it. So I had no reason to believe I was not spiritually fit. There was no extra fear or anything. And so we walk in there, and we fell in love with this Dr. Simpson. He's just a super great guy. Got to go to dinner with he and his wife, because that's kind of what Charlie and I do. And so we're sitting in there, and the girl asked Charlie the questions, have you been clearing your throat much in the mornings? And he goes, no, ma'am. And he clears his throat. You can't even get him to talk for the first 15 minutes when he gets up, because he's just so grovelly, right? Okay, so I'm sitting there thinking, wow, that is such a lie. And then she goes, have you been using nose spray? Now, my husband is Afrin addicted. One time we're in the Las Vegas airport, and we're standing in the Southwest line to board. He gets down on one knee, and he takes a hit off that thing. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? And it was terrible. He uses it all the time, and he goes, no, ma'am, I'm not using nose spray. And I just couldn't believe it. And she walks out of the room, and I look at him, and this is what I did. It was definitely wrong. Okay, I'm very well aware. I said, I pointed at him, and I go, and he's sitting in the doctor's chair, right? The big chair that they're going to roll him back and look in his throat. I said, Charlie, you are a big fat liar. And he came out of that chair like the Hulk. Like he was ripping his shirt off, and he goes, and he's just mad as shit. I'm scared to death. I am pissed. And in walks Dr. Simpson. And Dr. Simpson he wasn't a big man. And he walks in, and I am crying. I grab all my stuff, and Dr. Simpson goes, Katie, are you okay? And I just walk out of the room. No, I'm not. And I just barrel out of the room. Now I go right into the waiting room, and I am so distraught. I can't believe how quickly this has happened. And I'm hysterical. I'm doing that. You can't catch your breath. I got a magazine in front of my face that's shaking like crazy. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what just happened? And so now Marty always knows when we were going down there, because my sponsor is in tune to my life. It's not like I haven't talked to her in 4 weeks. Yeah. She knew I was going down there because I've lost one husband. I don't like the hospital scene, blah, blah, blah. And so this is me, and she's in high criminal court. She'd already told me she was going to be in court, so she couldn't take a phone call. And so this is the text thread we had. And keep in mind, I am the slowest texter in the world. Marty is remarkably fast. Okay, so it says, Marty, I need a new toolkit for a sick husband. We're at the doctor's, and I just left the room. I can't stop crying. I must sit there and be submissive. I can't do that. He does not give them enough information. Now, if you're hearing a 10-step, you just heard my old idea.
Yeah.
You heard what sent me to the moon and back, is I must sit there and be submissive. If I ever feel like you are going to try to make me, and I hate the term of my voice, but take away me saying something, my head blows off. It's like, oh no, right now we are all equal in this room. I have as much say as anyone else. And so there's the old idea. And then Marty always comes at it with this soft approach of, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That must be so painful. And I'm thinking, thank you. Yes, it is. And then she says, oh, she just kicks me in the teeth. I'm sure he's scared, maybe even terrified. None of this is about you. How can you be helpful? Are you in the doctor's office treating him like he knows nothing? Are you the doctor police? How are you coming off when he's giving information to the doctors? Are you smugly superior? Oh, my God. And all I can text back is, yes. I was like, you nailed it. Thank you, ma'am. You nailed it. And then, oh, she's not done yet. Stepping on his toes, are you? Well, if not, you who? All cloaked in a good motive. You have all the tools, hon. Just use them. I know hospitals and doctors are traumatic stuff for you, and you go on super high alert. This is a new day. And I just texted back, thanks. She made that hysterical cry stopped immediately.
Yeah, wow.
It was kind of freaky and scary, to be honest with you, because I mean I was really losing it. But the best part of this story, see, my pride is like my feet are in concrete. And if I hadn't had that conversation with Marty, Charlie comes walking out and says, Katie, please come back in. And I would never have been able to do that because my pride will not let me move. I am sitting here, forget it. Instead, I went back in. Of course, Dr. Simpson goes, are you okay? I'm like, yes. Just a little embarrassing. You know, the Parkers have rolled in and here we are. But to me, I mean, it was as much as I'm against texting, it was all I could do. But so let me put a little asterisk by that.
That's funny.
If you have no other way to communicate with somebody, you may text a 10th step. But if you can pick up the phone and call, and if I could have called her, I would have rather done that. But this was effective. And I went back in there, and when we went to breakfast, I said to Charlie, I said, wow, I do not know what happened. I mean, it came on me like crazy. And that's the thing about life, you know, it comes at you at point blank range, you know. So, you know, and I like my sponsees to leave me a voicemail of the 10th step so I can hear their voice. I want to hear what's going on. And then they need to watch, turn, affirm, and redirect up to 25 times till I can call them back. I try to get them to do nothing until they hear back from me. Right. And so I communicate a lot through voicemail. So you have 3 minutes to leave your problem on my machine, and I will get back with you. And if I don't reach you, I'll give you the solution.
One second. It's so cool how it's amazing how we have this body of work that works. Ain't it cool? I mean, everything you just said right there was like, you know, clearly, you know, just like it reminds me of when you say, you know, you do enough inventory where like sometimes even before you get finished with the third column, you're like, oh man, okay, I get it. Okay. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, like you're in a situation like this, you know, obviously your emotions going everywhere. There's certain parts of you that's threatened, you know. And then all of a sudden, like she sends a message, and something as simple as like cloaked in a good motive could just shut my internals up, right? So like, wow,
oh, absolutely, you know? Absolutely, and that's what we have to remember. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it can be something so subtle, and we go to the moon and back, and then we behave poorly. And once we sit down with somebody, we can dig up what it's all about. But in the moment, I wouldn't have seen it if it were, a neon light flashing at me. You know, Katie, these times are traumatic for you, and you go on super high alert. I know that. That's not new information. But in that moment, I couldn't have seen that for anything. You know, awesome. And that's the really tricky part about it, you know, and I don't think I really want to read the laws. I can tell people where the laws are, the law of substitution and the law of subconscious activity. I like to follow Emmett Fox in those, and they're on page January 26th through the 31st in around the year with Emmett Fox. So if anybody's interested in looking at all the spiritual laws, but the 10th step is the law of substitution and the law of subconscious activity. And they are so effective. You're substituting a positive thought for a negative thought. And then the law of subconscious activity will just make your skin crawl. It's so scary because it talks about the racing mind pulling everything in, stuff we haven't used in years to get its way. And that's dark night of the soul. If you've ever had the dark night of the soul, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Speaking of Emmett Fox, it's interesting. Next week on Tuesday, the 17th, me and a couple buddies of mine are actually doing a podcast on the spirituality of Emmett Fox. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, definitely send me that one.
Will do. Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Emmett Fox brought me closer to the Creator than anybody ever has in my lifetime. The Sermon on the Mount. That I used to call it the Sermon on the Mount, and Charlie goes like Lefty White. Katie, I'm like, what? I mean, is it the Sermon on the Mount? And he goes, it's the Mount, as in mountain, not the pitcher's mound. I thought, okay, thank you. I can round off words and not even realize I'm doing it. It's oh boy. But then Charlie and I'm a huge fan of working everything out in a marriage. I love the unity of marriage. I love what marriage stands for, the highs and lows of marriage. I don't really like all the lows, but marriage is tough. And I'm a huge fan of working out our difficulties in a marriage. And Charlie and I could play, I did certain games we played. Like if there's something that my husband does that really pushes my buttons, and he can't seem to stop doing it, then I get to say bingo. And bingo means you're doing that thing to me and it's bugging the crap out of me, and it dances around the ego. So if I'm doing something that bugs Charlie, like asking too many questions about something, well, why did that happen? And then where did they go with it? Women like to ask a lot of questions. Men don't tolerate that too well. And so Charlie would say, bingo, Katie. And all that means is, and we're not going to discuss it, right? It's just a way to dance around the ego. Because if he says, Katie, you're asking me too many questions, well, we're going to have an argument. And so that's a fun thing. And then the other one is do-overs. God, when we were kids, we did do-overs all the time. And I think they're so important in a marriage. And since the 10th step is trying to guide us into this spiritual realm, we don't need to be arguing as much as we do. Some people argue a lot. Some people, they say they don't argue at all. Well, let me tell you, they're doing something. They're doing silent scorn, or something's happening, right? Because human nature. And if you be alcoholic, something's going on. And so these do-overs, the one I like to use as the example, because Charlie, of course, made it so fun. We women go to get our hair done, and it's 2 hours sitting in that chair, and a whole lot of money these days. And I walk in the house with my hair done, and I just expected Charlie to go, "Oh my God, honey, your hair looks great," and he didn't say anything. And I looked at him and I said, you do Just for Men for 3 minutes, and you don't have to do any of this nonsense that we women do. And I said, I would have really appreciated you acknowledging how nice my hair looks. And he goes, okay, let's have a do-over. And he goes, go back out in the car, go outside. And I'm just going to stand outside. He goes, no, get in the car, shut the door, get out of the car, da-da-da. So I walk in the house, and he goes, oh my God, something's different. Something is different. Give me a minute. I think you had your hair done. And he goes off on this tangent that is so darn cute. It was so perfect. But the best part of it is Charles going to take everything to another degree. Nice. And he started having his sponsees call me on the day I got my hair done. And they go, Katie, hey, I got a question for you. I'm like, well, hit me. What is it? And they go, wait a second. Did you get your hair done? And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, we've had so much fun with the do-overs. And they're really a good thing to do in a marriage, because, it says in the 12 and 12 that we are unable to form a true partnership with another human being. I mean, that is black and flipping white. It is trying to warn us that you get two of us together, or just get us in an Al-Anon. And it's tough.
Yeah.
It's not your normal marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, the level of self-centeredness is pretty strong. And, it says love and tolerance of others is our code, right? That's a body of laws that we have to live by.
Yeah.
And I love the line in the book that says, if a mere code of morals or better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us.
Yeah.
No matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might. The needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's where it's like you slap your knee and go, I'm just going to be a better person. I'm going to become a better listener. Oh, sure you are, right? Yeah. It just does not work that way.
Yeah, you're blocked, right? I mean, you got to get unblocked.
That's right. The terms of the deal say, stay close to me and perform my work well. In order to stay close to him, I got to get close to him. In order to get close to him, I got to get unblocked.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really get amazed at some people. And once again, it was me for the first 17 years of my life. So there's no judgment in this statement. But when the alcoholic hears the solution and they're not doing it, they sit forward and go, say that again.
Yeah.
and you start talking about it, and then they get interested, and it opens door number 3 you didn't even know was there.
Yeah. Nice.
And you start explaining this stuff instead of looking at them like, I can't believe you're not doing it. Well, hell, I wasn't doing it either.
Yeah.
It's some people come right out of the gate and they think they can dodge the bullet of untreated alcoholism, and they never miss an evening review, and they do this and they do that, and I'm like, oh brother, let me tell you, when you fall, it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
I'll be there to help you up, but it ain't easy.
Yeah.
And it says, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. I mean, Mark used to say, position of neutrality, safe and protected. And if he were alive today, I would tell him, you need to say that position of neutrality does not feel good. I thought that meant you felt good. Yeah. No, that means I'm taking my hands off, but that does not feel good because I want to jump in there and fix it. So, that's cease fighting, money, weather, traffic, even alcohol. So I thought it was like being in Switzerland, is safe and protected. And it doesn't feel good. Do nothing does not feel good. And when we do nothing and we get results from doing nothing, that feels good. But that usually doesn't come right away. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a tricky little thing. And that position of neutrality is a game changer. Instead of sticking your neck, like I've seen people on the internet. I don't do any social media, but I've seen people get in somebody's argument, and I'm like, oh, I would not do that. You just inserted yourself into two people arguing, and you had no business in there. And it was all behind a kind motive or good motive. And then the next thing you know, the person that stepped in is going to get thrown under the bus. Because, I mean, that's just the nature of it. Yeah. And I think this is also a lot of looking at self-centered fear, right? I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay without it. This is going to be a very difficult task for me to understand self-centered fear. And it says that's how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition, right? And that fit spiritual condition requires active 10 steps, evening review, 11th step, on awakening, 11th step, then carrying the message to another drunk, carrying out your 10th step throughout the day. And this cycle, when done together, are like that hand in glove. Yeah. You can't, it's a level of discipline that will absolutely change the course of your recovery. Yeah. And, Mark was the one who told me, I said, Mark, I just can't get this engine running on 10 and 11. I just can't. I'm trying, and I just blow it every day. And he goes, well, Katie, he goes, I'm a jock. You're an athlete. You know what it takes to be an athlete. He said, take that same discipline into 10 and 11, game changer, absolute game changer. So what he meant was, even though I don't feel like doing it, I got to do it anyway. Yeah. So you got to find something, exactly, something in your life that will let you do that. Yeah. Figure out some sort of discipline you have. Maybe it's keeping your bathroom clean or making your bed every morning. Well, use that same discipline to put it into 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And then the one part of the book that tells us what's easy, it's easy to let up on this spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels, right?
Yeah.
Our past accomplishments. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol's a subtle foe. I'm telling you, this happens around those double-digit numbers. We rest on our laurels because we've got some of the finer things in life. We have a marriage, we have a job, we maybe have a house, we got a nicer car, and all of a sudden these things, that property and prestige, take over, and we just quit doing the things that we need to do, and it is challenging, and I don't think anybody gets to miss it. It says we're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. And I mean to tell you, they're not lying. When people come back that have relapsed after 14, 15, 16 years, I'm blown away that they were able to come back and not let their ego destroy them. That is humbling.
Wow.
And, it's just, it talks about this daily reprieve that we have, right? It's daily reprieve is to grant a temporary delay. And that's basically what we're looking at, right? And it says contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So contingent means uninterrupted of our spiritual condition. And I'm telling you, everybody's going to drift into untreated alcoholism at some point in their life. Call it whatever you want, flat spot, dry, whatever. I call it untreated alcoholism. I'm not treating my alcoholism. That's what's happening here. And to me, you cannot nail this thing. It would be like saying you're going to eat good every day. I mean, best of luck to you. But it says, every day's a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. That's a stout promise. I mean, that's not an easy task to do. I can tell you when I'm driving, I'm not carrying God's will into all of that. Patty Ochoa used to say, next time you want to see how spiritually fit you are, drive in the right-hand lane to work. Yeah. I'm like, I can't do that. No can do, So if it says we're to carry this vision, that means traffic, lines, AA members, ex-husband, ex-in-laws. You want me to do this with everything? This is a difficult task, right? And then it reminds us, if we've carefully followed directions, right? Those on page 29, the clear-cut directions are given us, showing us how we have recovered. So if we have carefully followed these directions, we've begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we've become God conscious. Nice. Our thought life will be placed on a higher plane. What a promise. Most beautiful 4 paragraphs in the big book. And I encourage people to study a paragraph a week. Mark used to say studying means you read the paragraph and you go back through and ask yourself what each line means to you. And that is studying. Don't read it for knowledge, but study it. And it is, if you ask me, it is the way to go. The 10th step is a beautiful 4-paragraph piece of literature that will absolutely rocket you into a 4th dimension.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Just love it. Yeah. So that's the beauty of that step. And we'll go into 11, I guess, in a couple of weeks. Yeah. 11 and 12 we have left. Right?
Yeah. We'll set a date. We don't have a date yet. We'll set one though. And I tell you, I really love how you said the bingo thing and then the do over. Right. I like how you said it's it kind of cuts through the ego. Right. Because it's just pretty much like getting past that position. That position of like wanting to argue or wanting to whatever. You get what I'm saying, right? This self showing up.
Absolutely. Well, once you touch the ego, you can touch the ego with going, if somebody calls me, Katie. Yeah. Oh, that's you touched it right there. Yeah. You could say, hey, Katie, but you can't go, Katie. I'm like, Charlie couldn't handle if you went, Charlie. Oh my God, his head blew off. You learned that lesson the hard way, and I tell you though, it's so interesting to come up with games that dance around the ego in marriages, and you end up having fun. Yeah. Right? What used to be a guaranteed fight turns into being something fun. And I'm telling you, that was the thing. And Joe and I learned all of these gifts were given to Joe and I brought them into our marriage with Charlie. And I'm telling you, they were game changers. They really did change the course of the way we handled it. Now, don't get me wrong. We were not ever just skipping down the yellow brick road. It's still a marriage, but anything that takes some of that pressure off is worth it.
Not taking yourself so daggum serious all the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And, and some people go, my gosh, you guys, you argue quite a bit. I'm like, well, we're two hot-headed alcoholics that are identical. Yes. I thank you for that observation. Yes, we do. Yeah. Which one of us is going to change? Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
but it was great. Well, I haven't done a 10-step talk in a while. That felt really good.
Yeah, that was awesome. I appreciate it. It's eye-opening in so many different ways. I like how you said the directions. If we've carefully followed directions, and you talked about page 29, I'm gonna have to go check that out. I don't remember that part, but
clear cut.
Yeah,
clear cut.
Nice.
And I'll tell you, one of the things too is PPG. Our PPG group has been around for 19 years, and there's just the best way to learn that darn book is to do that type of format, or get on the Zoom on Wednesday night and watch how this format will change the way you understand the book. It's designed for anyone to be able to learn it, and I am by no means a school did nothing for me. I think I've made that clear on about 8,000 talks. And I don't learn well, and I don't know what it is, but I just don't learn well. And I'm telling you what, PPG has taught me this book that I am so confident in understanding and effectiveness, and I want to learn more and more and more. So I don't ever want to stop learning about what the big book has to go. It goes deeper and deeper every time. Yeah. Every time.
I'd gotten on Charlie right before he passed, about probably 6 months or so before he passed. He had invited me on there. I went on a couple of them with him and did the line by line with it. That was cool. There's a workbook, right?
Oh, yeah. So when he was chairing the PPG on Wednesday night. Yeah. And that's still going on.
Nice.
That's would it be worth it for me to give the password and the time in case anybody's interested in jumping on that?
Sure. I mean, that's your call.
Yeah, because I got it. Just give me 2 seconds. It'll take me a second to pull it up. So it's Wednesday nights, 7:30 Central Standard Time, and the code is 630-577-473, and there's no password.
Okay.
So cool. It's at 7:30 on Wednesday nights.
Nice.
And I tell you what, it is. Even if you jump on that meeting every once in a while, or if you want to know a step better, it'll take them about a month to get through a step. Just go 4 times, and say, hey, man, they're on step 10. This is a great time for me to tell my sponsees to jump on and listen. And, it's just good for the soul to understand things deeper.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I had a good time with it. And also, Myers had shared it with me too. Me and Myers talked about it a couple of times.
Yeah, he is. He and Cliff were the ones who started it. Cliff was his sponsor, and I hope I'm not quoting this wrong, Joe McQueenie was Cliff's sponsor, and Cliff was the one who wrote the workbook, and Myers, his wife Londa, was the one who typed it, which I think she should have a monument given to her for typing that goddamn thing. And then Myers and Cliff did the PPG meeting, chaired it for 20 years, and then I think he went down to Kerrville. Myers did, and I mean it's just a remarkable job, and what a perfect way to learn the book. I mean it's
line for line for sure.
Line for line with a statement for every question.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. What was it, real quick, I think you had mentioned earlier you were talking about some different page numbers. Did you say there was you had mentioned page 123? Do you remember what that was? I'll have to go back and listen. There was something.
What was the context of it?
You had mentioned something about, I don't remember. I'll have to go back and listen and check it out. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it's all right. It's all right. Yeah. So we will.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we can do it next. If you remember what it is before we talk before the next one, tell me and I'll try to remember.
Okay, I will. I'll go back and listen to it. Yeah. So we will. I'll be getting a hold of you this week, and we'll set another date or so. And we got 2 more to do. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Yeah. You bet, Paul. I sure have enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay. Take care.
See you.
Hello. Thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.